Hello, and welcome to Quick Maths. Today we'll be covering the first part of the fraction section, so let's get started. Let's quickly go through the objectives of this short lesson. We'll run through some terminology, look at mixed numbers, equivalent fractions, and simplifying fractions. It's important to note here that with fractions, as with almost anything else, practice is key. You should try and do as many practice questions as you can to become comfortable with working with fractions. Firstly, let's look at some terminology. We'll work with an example when we talk about terminology here. This pizza has 8 equal slices or parts. One part or slice is 1/8 of the pizza. I'm going to eat 3/8 of this pizza. We can express this in numbers like this. The top number is how many parts I'm going to eat. Here this is 3, and the top number is called the numerator of the fraction. The bottom number is how many parts the pizza is divided into. Here this is 8, and the bottom number is called the denominator of the fraction. Let's do another example. This rectangle here is divided into 5 equal parts. 2 of them are coloured in. That means that 2/5 of this rectangle is coloured in. Top-heavy fractions are where the numerator is larger than the denominator, such as these examples of 11/8 or 17/4. These are also known as improper fractions. These types of fractions can be written a different way. Let's take our first example above of 11/8 and our pizza from earlier. Now looking at the fraction, our pizza is still divided into 8 slices, and I want to eat 11. If I'm trying to eat 11 slices, I will eat all 8 slices of one pizza and another 3 slices of another pizza that's also divided into 8, so I eat 11 slices altogether. But in total, I've eaten one whole pizza and 3/8 of another. We write this as 1 3/8. Here is an example for you to try. Write 17/4 in mixed numbers. You can pause the video here to give you time to do this before we go through the answer. Our example was 17/4 or 17/4. So this time our pizza is divided into 4 parts because the denominator is 4, and we will eat 17 of these parts. So one pizza is 4 parts, 2 are 8 parts, 3 are 12 parts, 4 are 16 parts, and we need 1 part of another pizza divided into 4 to make 17. In total, this is 4 1/4 pizzas. So we can express 17/4 or 17/4 in mixed numbers as 4 1/4. You may have seen by now that what you're doing in this process is just dividing the numerator, here 17, by the denominator, here 4. 17 divided by 4 is 4 1/4. And this is really all a fraction is. One number divided by another, the numerator divided by the denominator. We can also work the other way around. Write 2 1/4 as a top-heavy fraction. So here we must keep the denominator the same as the fraction we already have. So what we are asking is 2 1/4 is how many quarters? So let's start by looking at how many quarters are in the 2. There are 4 quarters in 1, and therefore there are 8 quarters in 2. So 2 1/4 is 8 quarters, that's our 2, plus the 1/4 we have left over, and altogether that's 9 quarters. Now let's take a look at equivalent fractions. Let's take this shape here, a square. I can divide this square into equal parts in a few different ways. I can divide it into 4 equal parts, or quarters. This shaded part is 1/4, or 1/4. I can divide it again into 8 equal parts, or 8ths, and this shaded part is 2/8, or 2/8. And you'll notice that the same amount is shaded as in the first picture. I can divide the square again into 16 equal parts, or 16ths, and this shaded part is 4/16, or 4/16. Again, the same amount is shaded as in the previous 2 diagrams. So we can conclude that 1/4 is equal to 2/8, and both of these are also equal to 4/16. You'll notice that in this example, to get from 1/4 to 2/8, you multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. You do the same thing to get from 2/8 to 4/16. And to get from 1/4 to 4/16, just multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4. And this is how we find equivalent fractions, by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So here's an example for you to try. Find two equivalent fractions to 2/3. You can pause your video to give you time to do this before we go through the answer. We want to find two equivalent fractions to 2/3. So we can multiply the numerator and the denominator of 2/3 by, for example, 2. That'll get us to 4/6. And as another example, we can multiply the numerator and denominator of 2/3 by 3. This will get us to 6/9. And these are our two equivalent fractions to 2/3. To simplify a fraction, we find an equivalent fraction with smaller numbers on the top and the bottom. To do this, we need to do the opposite of what we did to find equivalent fractions. To find equivalent fractions, we multiply the top and bottom by the same number. To simplify fractions, we need to divide the top and bottom by the same number. Let's take this example. Simplify 24/36. So we need to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So what common factors do these numbers have? Or what numbers go into both 24 and 36? Well, 3 does. 3 is a common factor of both of these, so we divide the numerator and the denominator by 3. So we've simplified our fraction to 8/12. But you may have noticed that we can simplify this fraction again. Why? Because 8 and 12 can be divided by 4. 4 is one of their common factors. So we divide the numerator and the denominator by 4, and we get 2/3. Now, 2 and 3 have no common factors apart from 1, so we can't simplify this fraction anymore. So 2/3 is what is called the simplest form of the fraction 24/36. You've probably spotted that we can get from 24/36 to 2/3 straight away. How? By dividing the numerator and the denominator by 12. 12 is the highest common factor of 24 and 36. That means that it is the highest number that goes into both of those. So to immediately write a fraction in its simplest form, divide the numerator and the denominator by their highest common factor. Here is an example for you to try. Again, you can pause the video if you need to before we go through the answer. So we want to get 60/66 to its simplest form. A common factor of the numerator and the denominator is 6. So we divide the numerator and the denominator by 6 to get 10/11. Now 10 and 11 have no common factors apart from 1. So the fraction is in its simplest form. That's because 6 is the highest common factor of 60 and 66. Thank you for watching. Be sure to watch our next video where we'll cover adding, subtracting, and ordering fractions.